The Great War, exploring the largest conflict in history, World War I. Introduction to the First World War. The First World War was one of the most significant conflicts in human history. It was a global war that involved many nations and had a profound impact on the world we live in today. In this video, we will explore some key facts about the First World War, including what it was, when it took place, and why it is called the Great War. The First World War is often called the Great War because it was the largest and most destructive conflict the world had ever seen up to that point. The war involved over 70 million military personnel, including 60 million Europeans, and resulted in the deaths of over 9 million soldiers and 7 million civilians. The war also had a profound impact on the world's political and social landscape, leading to the collapse of empires and the emergence of new nations. The causes of the First World War. There were several factors that contributed to the outbreak of this war. Before the war, many countries in Europe had formed alliances with each other. This meant that if one country went to war, its allies would also be dragged into the conflict. These alliances created a complicated web of relationships that made it difficult for countries to avoid going to war. When a small conflict broke out between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, these alliances meant that many other countries were quickly drawn into the conflict. In 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated by a group of Serbian nationalists. This event set off a chain reaction of events that eventually led to the outbreak of war. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination and declared war on the country. This led to Russia mobilizing its troops to support Serbia, which then caused Germany to declare war on Russia. Many countries in Europe were competing for power and territory. This led to a sense of nationalism, where people believed that their country was superior to others. Additionally, many European countries had colonies around the world, and they wanted to expand their empires. This competition for power and territory created tension between countries and made it more likely that a small conflict could escalate into a larger war. The major battles of the First World War. The First World War was a long and brutal conflict that involved many battles around the world. The Battle of the Marne, the Battle of Jutland, and the Battle of the Somme were three of the major battles of the war that had a significant impact on its outcome. A. The Battle of the Marne. The Battle of the Marne took place in September 1914 and was a significant victory for the Allied powers. The German army had advanced towards Paris, but the French and British forces were able to halt their progress. The battle lasted for several days, and both sides suffered heavy casualties. The victory at the Battle of the Marne prevented the German army from achieving a quick victory and set the stage for a long and brutal war. B. The Battle of Jutland. The Battle of Jutland was a naval battle that took place in the North Sea in May 1916. The battle was fought between the British Royal Navy and the German High Seas Fleet. The two sides clashed in a massive naval engagement, with both suffering significant losses. Although the British technically won the battle, it did not have a significant impact on the outcome of the war. The Battle of Jutland was the largest naval battle of the First World War and demonstrated the power and importance of naval forces in modern warfare. C. The Battle of the Somme. The Battle of the Somme was one of the bloodiest battles of the First World War. It took place between July and November 1916 and was fought between the Allied powers and the German army. The battle was fought in the trenches and resulted in over 1 million casualties. Despite the heavy losses, the Allies were able to gain some ground, but the battle did not result in a decisive victory for either side. The impact of the First World War on society. The First World War was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Millions of soldiers and civilians lost their lives during the war, and many more were injured. The war had a significant impact on the families and communities of those who died or were injured, and it left a lasting legacy of grief and trauma. Many women took on new roles during the war, working in factories and on farms, while the men were away fighting. Children also experienced the effects of the war, with many being separated from their families or forced to flee their homes. The war also led to significant social and cultural changes, with many people questioning traditional values and beliefs. The First World War also had a significant impact on the world economy, with many countries experiencing major changes in their economic systems. The war led to the development of new technologies and industries, and it also resulted in the destruction of many existing economic structures. The war also contributed to the rise of new economic powers, such as the United States, and the decline of older ones, such as Great Britain. The end of the First World War. There were 3 important events that led to the end of the war. A. The signing of the armistice in 1918. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed between the Allied powers and Germany. This ended the fighting and marked the official end of the war. The armistice was signed in a railway carriage in the forest of Compiègne in France, and it was a significant moment in history. The Treaty of Versailles and its consequences. The Treaty of Versailles was signed in June 1919 and officially ended the war. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany and its allies, including large reparations payments and the loss of territory. The treaty is widely seen as one of the causes of the Second World War, as it humiliated Germany and created a sense of anger and resentment that lasted for many years. C. The role of the League of Nations in maintaining peace. The League of Nations was established in 1920 and was designed to prevent future wars. The League was created as part of the Treaty of Versailles and was responsible for maintaining peace and security around the world. Although the League had some successes, it ultimately failed to prevent the outbreak of the Second World War. In conclusion, the end of the First World War was marked by the signing of the armistice in 1918, the Treaty of Versailles and its consequences, and the establishment of the League of Nations. Although the war was officially over, its impact would be felt for many years to come. Understanding the end of the war can help us learn from the past and work towards a more peaceful future.